All right, 4 miles of coastline covered in oil this morning after a pipeline ruptured near Santa Barbara, California last night. The rupture is located along an 11-mile-long underground pipeline that is part of a large oil transportation network bound for Southern California. Coast Guard crews were able to cap the leak relatively quickly, but initial estimates expect that more than 20,000 gallons of oil escaped before the pipeline was secured. The popular State Beach has now been closed off to the public, as many were expecting to visit during the Memorial Day weekend. So what does this mean for the oil transportation debate in Washington right now? I want to bring in Proactive Communications President Mark Serrano. And Phil Flynn joins us as well from the CME Group in Chicago. I want to start with you first. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Sandra.
This is just a horrible story. So first, is this something that could have been prevented?
It is. You know, the owner of the pipeline has a responsibility to transport that oil safely. They are going to have to manage this crisis by communicating the facts as they learn them and checking their safety precautions. So, yes, it likely could have been avoided.
So the long-term discussion turns to, should we be transporting this oil by other means?
Right. If you take a look at rail transportation, it doubled in 2012 from the year prior, but it's still only 10% of oil transportation in the United States. Most of it comes through pipelines. And, you know, with Keystone Pipeline and other proposals out there, we're going to see more and more transported by pipeline. It's the best way to go. You know, the environmental activists will say, we don't want that transported through our communities on rail. So really, oil pipelines are the best way to go. And this spill, comparatively, is a spit in the ocean. BP was 200 million gallons, over 16,000 miles of coastline. Although this is critical for that 4 miles in Santa Barbara, it is just a little spit in the ocean comparatively.
Phil Flynn, is this, you and I have talked a lot about the Keystone Pipeline and the discussion that's still out there. I know what your take is on it. I know what the majority of traders' take is on it. But broadly speaking, does this change the conversation when it comes to the Keystone Pipeline and the possible approval of it?
Well, I think the opponents are going to use this and every other mistake they can possibly find to bolster their case against the pipeline. But as your other guest pointed out, the evidence really works against them. Pipelines have been proven time and time again to be the most safe way to transport oil from point A to point B. And we've seen, because of some of the disasters that we've seen on the rail lines over the last couple of years and months, that should really hit home about the most safe way to use it. The bottom line is that we do have an aging infrastructure when it comes to pipelines in this country, but part of that is because it's very difficult to build new pipelines because there's so much political opposition. So I would turn this around and say, at the end of the day, we really have to expand our pipeline capacity, improve our monitoring of older pipelines to make sure this doesn't happen. And to be honest with you, I think if we really work on the pipeline safety, these type of accidents that we're seeing today are going to be very small compared to the amount of oil that we actually move.
What do you make of that? You know, talking about the infrastructure and the spending on the infrastructure in the United States when it comes to pipelines, are we lacking? Are we spending in the right areas? Should we ramp up that spending if you're saying that pipelines are still indeed the safest way to move this oil through the country?
Well, I think we'll see if we can unleash the power of oil and gas in America like we have not so far to its ability. I think we'll see a lot of private investment in that infrastructure. It doesn't have to be public sector dollars. Let's see private investment. Let's see a new administration in Washington in the next 2 years who will help unleash the potential so we can become a net exporter of oil and gas.
Do you see that happening? Will we be a net exporter of oil sometime in the near future?
We will be a net exporter. Right now, you know, the reduction in gas prices is really harming the industry. Over the long term, 5, 10, 15 years, we will be a net exporter because it's in our best national security interest as well as our economic interest.
How does that change things, Phil, if indeed that happens? I know most estimates by the big banks are out there. Citigroup has already put out their forecast that this is going to happen sooner than later. That drastically changes our energy landscape in this country.
I think it does. You know, we've already made tremendous strides in this country. We're already a net petroleum exporter. We're actually exporting more oil products that we're actually importing, and a lot of people don't realize that. And if we can unleash and lift this oil export ban that's antiquated, it's holding back our economy, it's holding back energy prices, it's making our gasoline prices higher. Once we start to do that, that's not only going to fix the energy industry, but it's going to give our economy a big boost. You know, our energy industry continues to work with one hand tied behind its back.
Yeah.
And under this administration, it really is not taking advantage of all the strides that this industry has made.
Mark, something tells me that those that are against the Keystone Pipeline are certainly going to use this news today, this California spill, in their favor.
They will exploit this for sure. It's going to, you know, embolden them to say, see, this is why we can't have more pipelines in America. But you know what? Every form of energy production has an impact on the environment. Every form. Even alternatives have an impact on the environment.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you measure it all out, pipelines are the best transportation method. You know, we need to produce more, we need to transport more. So they will definitely be emboldened, but it's not going to have an impact on the debate.
That's why I say the people that are making these decisions for our country have to be armed with the most information possible, have to be educated as much as possible so that we have the right decisions made for the best interest of the United States. All right, Mark Serrano, thank you for joining us, and Phil Flynn from the CME as well. Thanks, guys.